Welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Austin, Texas. We are joined by SwimSwam editor-in-chief, Braden Keith in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Yin Lee in Evanston, Illinois. We got 4 top 15 recruits on the men's side, all committed to UVA this weekend, including number 1, Thomas Heilman, and number 2, Maximus Williamson. First of all, just let's talk about the impact of this and what this means for college swimming on the men's side moving forward.
I think getting number 1 and number 2, especially out of this class, we have to remember these aren't normal number 1 and number 2s. These are guys that can swim a lot of events. They can swim them very well. They can swim short course. They can swim long course. These are program changing kind of guys. And it's coming at the right time. This is sort of the equivalent, I'd say, of the Cal women and what they've done in the same class. Going into the big ACC Pac-12 merger and all that stuff, with the NCAA champions Cal coming in. Like, if you don't want to get lost in that whole churn with Cal and Stanford and NC State and Louisville and all these other teams, you've got to make a statement. And I think they've made a statement right at the right time. Heilman makes the most sense here. I think a lot of people thought Williamson was probably going to wind up at Texas. And then those two were going to decide who was going to go where they were going to drag different people to. But now that those two went to the same place, they clearly have the number 1 class this year. Like, I don't think there's anything anybody else can do to catch them this year. It's not automatic NCAA champions, right? In men's swimming especially, you need a couple of good classes to do it, and their 2024 class is not spectacular. So they'll need a couple transfers or a really good 2026 class, I think, to be in that top 2, top 3 conversation. But who's not going to want to swim with those two guys?
I mean, the 2024 class has 2 top 20s, so it's still not a bad class.
Yeah, but they're not NCAA title guys. They're not going to win titles.
I mean, you don't. I feel like it's hard to predict that from male swimmers that are
Yeah, but
top
that's our
recruits.
job.
Okay,
We got to
so
try. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
okay, so for one, I think this is great for parity. Love to see it. Top recruits not going to a traditional top 6 blue blood school men's swimming. I think this is just going to add to the growing list of men's swim teams that could be NCAA title contenders or at least at the top of the NCAA. I do agree that it's going to take more than Hellman and Williamson and Josh Howard, Thomas Mercer, Grant Murphy to win an NCAA title, but I think this is the first step. I said this in my article about Thomas Hellman, that this reminded me of when the UVA women first recruited Kate Douglas, Ella Nelson, Maddie Donahoe, Lexi Como in Todd DeSorbo's first year as a coach. This is the first time the UVA men have gotten a recruit on the level of Kate Douglas, Alex Walsh, Gretchen Walsh on the women's side. And I think this is their first step. There's definitely going to be a lot more pressure on the UVA men. I think people are going to expect something similar to what they got with the women in a few years, especially with Hellman and Williamson, who are considered arguably the future of American swimming. And with UVA's history of with top male recruits, which has been hit or miss, there's going to be a lot of pressure for this to go right.
I think it's just kind of interesting to see how the lag, right? Just how the women took off right when DeSorbo got there, and then it's taken a while for the men, which I think we see in a lot of combined programs. But yeah, we'll see how this develops. I think, like Braden said, Heilman was kind of the obvious choice. I'm hoping we can get them on the podcast soon so we can kind of dissect what went into this decision, especially for Maximus Williamson, because that is definitely out of left field for me. I did not expect him to go there, considering UVA men's just history with event specialties. It's like for his events, it's not necessarily an obvious choice.
What I think is
I
interesting.
was surprised.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is that Virginia is not recruiting a lot of internationals. And I think we all understand at this point that you can win with just Americans, but it's a lot longer route. It's much easier to win with a couple of internationals to complement your Americans, just because the Americans don't always go to the same place like this. And from talking to Virginia people, it's not like a philosophy. It's not like Texas where they have this America first sort of philosophy. It's more just Virginia has unusually high standards on things like TOEFL, which is the English language proficiency test, and
I was
stuff
wondering if
that
it
just
was
makes it,
academic related.
yeah, it makes it hard to get international students in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's an
And
interesting point.
most of their international students are from English-speaking countries, like Amy Canney, South Africa, Sophia
Right.
Wilson's from Great Britain.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, and again, that's like one of the draws of UVA is that great academic school as well as athletically. We're going to talk a little bit about that class more later in the show, but right now we're going to go to the World Cup that has concluded. We saw the last leg in Budapest this weekend. Kaylee McKeown broke two world records casually in the 50 and 100-meter backstroke. She already owned the 100. She did not own the 50, but now she owns all three backstroke records in long course. And Chen Haiyang also completed his triple crown in the 50, 100, and 200 breast. I'm curious, because Kaylee and Chin also have like such different histories, what you think this says about those two athletes specifically leading into this Olympic year and how we're going to see their momentum carry forward.
I was most impressed at how they were able to be fast 3 weeks in a row. And they weren't the only ones. Lanny Pallister was fast 3 weeks in a row. There were a lot of swimmers in this series who were fast 3 weeks in a row. They're in two very different situations going into Paris, right? Chin is it doesn't look like anybody's going to challenge him right now. Like it doesn't look like there's anybody in the neighborhood. Maybe what's his face from Australia in the 200. I don't know. It's he seems so far ahead right now. It doesn't seem like Adam Peaty is going to get back there right now. Paris is still a ways away. Arno Kaminga had his little flash in the pan moment, got COVID at the wrong time, and it seems like he's not going to recapture that. So versus McKeown, who this week, I know it's yards, but saw Regan Smith break an American record in the 200-yard fly. She has to be good, I think, in Paris if she wants to pull off the double. Because I think Bowman and Regan Smith are going to figure out the taper this year. So they're in two different positions going in. And McKeown, we saw last year, wasn't at her best at Worlds. She wasn't hitting her best times, especially in that 200 back. So it's two very different situations that are kind of fun to watch for different reasons. Chin's ability to go fast at Worlds and then Asian Games and then this World Cup is unprecedented in my mind. I don't know if we've ever seen anybody do something like that.
Well, it's the situation where like we've never seen Chin before this season, and then all of a sudden he's on top of the world for 3 months straight. It's like, can he maintain this? Was this his flash in the pan, or like is he actually going to be able to stay on top for another 1, 2, 4, or 5 years?
Yeah,
I agree with Braden. I think Chin and McKeown are in very different situations. For Chin, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him because he got it done at all these other meets leading up to the Olympics. Can he get it done on the biggest stage? Which I have a lot of trust in him that he can, but it's definitely a very, very pressurizing feeling. And Coleman, you talk about how he sort of I don't want to say he came out of nowhere because he was very good as a junior swimmer, but he sort of had a flat 2022 and then came out on top this year. He had a big coaching change last year, and he with Tui Rong, who's Zhang Yufei's coach. Once he started training with him, he started getting considerably better because he was focusing more on breaststroke, whereas in the past he dabbled in a lot of IM work. But with Kaylee, I think these world records were a statement, as if she didn't need any more statements to prove herself that she is the favorite heading into Paris. If I was a bettor, I would be betting on her to sweep the backstrokes. I know Reagan's times are around not that far off Kaylee's, but Kaylee has gotten the job done every single year since 2019. Has even when she had a bad year in 2022, she still won the world title in the 200 back. She's just been so consistent, always gets her hand on the wall first. And Regan has not hit her best time in the backstroke since 2019. Kaylee is consistently breaking world records, and I just don't see how you can argue that she's not the favorite. Even with the whole Kaylee swims faster in Australia thing, which I don't think is true. But yeah, that's my take.
Well, yeah, she
Coleman's
she just swam the fastest in Europe, so that argument is now not super valid. But
yeah,
it's interesting because Reagan's trajectory like was here and then it kind of stagnated, but now it's like with Bowman, it's rising, right? And like Kaylee is the favorite and the defending champion in everything. And so I think she is the favorite, but that gives her more pressure. Whereas Regan is kind of like, she's the triple silver medalist from these past worlds in all three backstrokes. So it's like, she's the one chasing. And I think at an Olympic Games, if you have that mindset, it's going to be easier for you to relax and swim the race you can than if you are the defending champion who everyone is expecting to win everything. But we have seen Kaylee win. So I think it's a toss-up for me at this point, but I agree. If I had to pick one, Kaylee is the favorite.
I mean, but I think Kaylee was in this position this year as well. Regan was the one chasing. Kaylee had the faster
world champs.
time. And Kaylee still got it done, even after her 200 IMDQ that affected her a lot emotionally.
Allegedly. All right. Yeah. Great World Cup swims. Will be awesome to see both Qin and Kaylee move forward through this year. And speaking of top backstrokers, Braden, you mentioned it. Regan Smith had a sensational swim of her own this week, going the fastest ever 200-yard butterfly, 148.33 at a dual meet in a time trial, because why not? I guess that's just what Regan Smith does now. She also went 52.8 in the 100-yard IM, which is like makes her the number
Breaks
3
into the top 10
of
UVA swimmers in the 100 IM.
Exactly. Like pretty solid. But what does this swim say to you about where Regan is at and this looming Olympic battle between her and Kaylee in the backstrokes?
So our friends down under are going to say, oh, it's yards. It doesn't matter. But what I want people to understand is that this is a 2.6 second drop off of her best time. Even if you were to attribute that entire 2.6 seconds to her underwaters, right? There are still underwaters in long course swimming. So that's still how many underwaters are there in a long course versus a short course 200 fly? Like half as many?
4 and 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So if she drops 1.3 seconds in her long course 200, like that's an Olympic gold medal. Right?
Braden, that was not a 2.6 drop. It was more like because her best time was 149.7 before.
Oh,
it was like 1.4 for a second.
Yeah. Okay. So still, I mean, even if it's all underwater, right? There's still underwaters in long course swimming. They still matter. So to me, that's still a significant drop, just the magnitude of it. To me, for Regan, it's still about two things. It's about her confidence going into the meet, and it's about event selection. I think if she goes 4, even pushes for 5, if she tries to get a spot on a relay or something like that, on a free relay, I think that's going to sink her. But I think if they're smart about event choices, and I think if they can keep her sort of emotionally engaged and confident going into the meet, I don't know. I think she'll win a gold medal. I don't know which one, but I think she'll win something.
Okay, I hate to be that person, but I don't really think this swim means anything.
No!
148.3 is very fast. It is the previous record was
the fastest.
149 something, and she just goes 148 low, which is insane. But when you think about it, her best time 149.7. is from high school. It's from when she was a high
Wow.
schooler.
Is it from high school or is
It
it from
was
her gap
from
year?
her. It was
Gap
from
year.
her gap year. But
Yeah.
before she came into college, back then her best time in the 200 fly was like a 205, and now she goes to 205. Oh, 2063, and now she goes 203 at the long course. So to me, this was kind of expected, especially considering far how fast how much faster she's gotten in the long course 200 fly to go faster in yards where I think you can people typically drop more time was expected for me. And to me, with
In a
Regan
dual meet,
Smith,
though?
well, in a dual meet, Regan Smith was faster at an ASU time trial than she was at World Championships. So this is not surprising
That's
to me.
true.
Um,
That's true.
to
That's fair.
me, the biggest thing for Regan
But
Smith
Kaylee
is
McKeown was faster at a whatever meet than she was at World Championships. Sorry,
that
go on.
that is true. But to me, with Reagan, it's about swimming fast, getting her hand on the wall first at the big meets at the right time. And no matter how many time trials she goes and goes ridiculous times, that's still going to be my main concern for Reagan. And she's gonna have to learn how to get it done at big moments. So this swim doesn't mean that much for me.
How do we think the general pressure, and I know we're responsible for a lot of this pressure, but there's a mounting pressure on the American team to figure it out, right? As everybody in Colorado Springs would like to say, oh, we did fine. We won lots of medals. We just got to find those tenths to get our hands on the wall. But there's a lot of pressure in those last few tenths, right? So do we
Yeah.
think that mounting pressure is going to impact individual athletes like Reagan and some of these other silver medalists, or not?
Personally, like I said before, I think winning silver in a world champ in a pre-Olympic year is a good thing. I think it's like you did well, you're in a good place, but you have more to achieve. And I think that's the mentality that the US not only fosters as a country, but I think individuals will carry with them into this coming year. It's like, okay, I'm a player, but I want to win. So I
Yeah.
think that will be a good thing ultimately. I think US will respond.
I personally don't think there's going to be as much pressure on the silver medalists as there is on the swimmers that did well last year for Team USA. I'm thinking about Kate Douglas, Katie Ledecky. Well, Katie Ledecky's fine with pressure. We know that. But people like Kate Douglas, who sort of exploded this year in long course, I have a feeling that NBC is going to use Kate Douglas as one of their poster athletes for their marketing campaign based on the fact that they were at UVA a few weeks ago. And there's just going to be a lot of pressure for them to perform on the biggest stage,
I
especially
don't
with the, yeah.
I don't think Kate Douglas feels pressure. As Tyler Fenwick described, she's not here to have fun. She's a killer. I think Kate Douglas will be fine. I think she's got that Katie Ledecky come get it mentality.
I mean, she said in an interview that she wanted to pull a Maya Dorado and retire after winning a gold medal, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
That would be awesome if she did. I'm out. All right.
It'd be more awesome if she swam to LA and won more gold medals, but yeah. Either way.
So if you were like Bob Bowman and or Michael Bull, would you tell Kaylee and or Reagan, like, okay, you should swim the 2 fly, 2 IM, or you should only focus on backstrokes in Paris?
She's not swimming the 2 IM. Reagan's not swimming the 2 IM.
Kaylee.
No, Kaylee.
2 IM for Kaylee, 2 fly for Reagan.
If it's me, I'm telling. Oh, I haven't looked at the schedule enough. I remember the world schedule had a conflict. I don't know. I'm telling Reagan maybe to skip the 1 fly, and do 1
but
back,
swim
2
the other
back,
3
2 fly. Yeah, and I'm probably telling Kaylee to swim all 3. I think she's got all 3 in her, without having looked at the schedule to know if that's a stupid decision. But
right, yeah, like schedule conflicts aside.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Reagan was going to swim the 1 fly in the first place, but I do agree that Kaylee's going to swim all 3 because she has that feel in her from that DQ. She wants to prove and that she can swim and contend with the top swimmers in 2IM on the big stage. And I don't think we've seen the best 2IM from her yet. And
If
it's
I was
also
both,
on the very last day of the meet. There's probably no conflict for her. It's like, why not? She's gotten her two major races out of the way. All she has to do is this.
Yeah.
And the
if
medley relay.
if I was either coach, I'd say drop them, drop the third event, focus on backstrokes. That's why I'm not their coaches, I guess. From a
No
swim
guts,
fan perspective, I obviously want to see them swim all the
no
events they
guts, no
can.
glory.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, they train for it. They're obviously very good, but we shall see. And let's get to the final big news meet of the weekend, the Pan American Games, which for my money was the the smallest big news. We haven't seen a ton of eye-popping swims here. It's always fun to see a championship meet. From our perspective, Team USA, winning medals is great. But what do you see at this meet? There are not a lot of great times. A lot of athletes are not even going best times or close to their best times. What's your analysis of this meet so far? We've seen two finals and a prelims.
Yeah, I think it's a good chance to race. I wrote this about Johnny Kulo's relay split. It's a good chance for Team USA to find out what they have, who they have, where to invest their energy, because we got to remember there is some national investment of resources that happens in terms of opportunities with camps and analyses and sports science stuff and whatever. I think Jack Aikens had a good swim in a 200 back where the Americans need somebody to have a good swim next year. So I think that's exciting. I think Johnny Kulo had a good swim. So for Team USA, I think that's what it's about. Kennedy Noble had a good swim. And then for the rest of the world, this meet, we have to remember this meet is still pretty important. Brazil really cares about this meet. Mexico, Canada, some of these other countries really care. Maggie McNeil showed that she's, still engaged as a professional. So that's exciting, speaking globally. Yeah, I don't know. The Brazilians are swimming well, so that's fun. The Brazilian women are swimming well. I think Alexia Assunção, I'm probably butchering that, won their first ever women's medal in the 200 back at the Pan American Games, and the time wasn't anything spectacular, but that's been an ongoing conversation, sort of the momentum of the Brazilian women and fighting some cultural influences to the opposite there has been sort of a big picture topic over the last decade. So seeing them succeed, I think, is very good for their momentum going forward as well.
I don't think Pan Am's has ever been that fast for me. I saw that Maggie McNeil went 56.9 and broke a Pan Am's record, and I was surprised that no one's ever been faster than 56.9 at this meet. But I guess that's how it is. I mean, at least for the Americans' sake, I'm thinking about how this meet is in the middle of October. A lot of these swimmers are college swimmers, and they're sort of in the thick of training right now. And for a lot of these swimmers, this meet is a chance to get international racing experience. It's not a sort of peak taper meet like national was. So I don't really expect a lot of them to be faster than their nationals times, which they are not.
Well, and let's be careful saying never, because in prior generations, this was a big meet. This was a meet where world records were being set. Rick Perry in 1983, Steve Lundquist in 1983 both set world records. So more recently,
Yeah.
to be specific.
Well, and it's also interesting because I forget, this meet is only once every 4 years. The last iteration was 2019 and then 2015 before that. And swimming has gotten so much faster, so much quicker, it seems like. From 2019 to 2023, we've seen a lot of tectonic shifts in multiple events where it's like you look at the records that were set in 2019 and it's like, oh, that wouldn't even final now at a Worlds or an Olympics, or like that's not even close to medaling. So it's like I was in the same boat as Union where it's like, really, no one's gone that. And then I'm like, oh, wait, again, that was 4 years ago. So we have seen quite a few meet records go down.
And
I feel like as a result of that.
It used to be a primary meet. It's sort of like Pan Pacs occupies that slot now, but it used to be a primary meet in a non-world championship year. Now it's the championship before or after the world championships. because the World Championships used to be in even numbered years.
Yeah. I like this meet a lot better when it's at the end of the summer rather than the middle of the fall. Because then we can, then I think athletes
of the North
prepare
American
for
summer
it
and fall, because the meets in South America.
Right. And our final topic, circling back to our first topic, the UVA men's class of 2025 is already loaded with talent, again, including our number 1 and number 2 recruits of the class. For your money and for your SwimSwam expert analysis, is this the best ever men's recruiting class in the SwimSwam ranking era? So again, we're not including women's recruiting classes because that's a whole different ball game. But in the last 13 years, is this the best men's recruiting class we've ever seen?
So we're eliminating the 1984 Stanford class with Pablo Morales and Jeff Costa.
Does not count.
Which is probably at this point is probably the number 1 class, because those guys were ridiculous when they got to Stanford. So who are the candidates? Give us the who are we talking about?
So in my research, I found 2 classes that I think could stack up on paper. The 2017 Cal class that had Ryan Hoffer, Sean Grisha, Bryce Mefford, Trent Julian, Daniel Carr, among others. That's 5 top 20s, including the number 1 and number 2 of the classes, as well as the NC State men of 2021, Aiden Hayes, Arsenio Bustos, David Curtis, Sam Hoover, Garrett Boone, and Noe Ponti. That's 4 top 12s, kind of similar to this UVA class. Again, we're comparing classes on paper at the time of commitment. We can't take the context of how these classes panned out because we don't know how the Virginia class is going to pan out yet. But I think those 2 classes can compare to this UVA class as it stands right now.
I'm going to throw 2 others in there. I'm going to throw the 2014 UST class with Santo Condorelli and Steven Stumpf and Michael Dumagala. These names aren't going to sound familiar because Dylan Carter was in that class.
Unless you're a nerd.
Yakov Tumerkin was in that class, but never actually swam there. This was coming off of a 4th place finish at NCAAs. It looks like they were going to get over that hump. The class never really worked out for them for the most part. Some of them had nice careers, Reed Malone, but that was a really good class on paper.
Reed Malone. Reed Malone was also in that class?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
It was a super deep class. I don't know if they had anybody as good as these guys on paper, but it was a really good class. And then the 2024 NC State class that we haven't seen yet, with Kai Winkler and Daniel Deal in it, number 1, number 2.
Oh, duh.
Yeah. This is the second straight year we've seen number 1, number 2 go to the same school, but that class wasn't, their next best recruit was number 15, Nolan Dunkel, and then 17, Matt Marsteiner. So that's probably not as good. I don't know. On paper, I hate to have recency bias, but on paper, this feels like a ridiculous class. Not like those classes had guys that were really fast, and they had guys like Arsenio Bustos who could swim a lot of races. But they didn't have guys who were both, it doesn't feel like they had 2 guys like this at the top who were both really fast and could swim a lot of races, that were super fast, and whatever 4 relays you need me on, coach, I'm ready to go. Like Howman and Maximus Williamson, they're good in long course. It just feels to me, starting with those top 2, it's on sort of a different plane. And then the other guys around them are like guys who would be number 1 in one of those other classes, or comparable to the good swimmers in those other classes. So to me, on paper, this is the best in the SwimSwam era, I think.
I hate to agree with Braden and not start an argument, but
I hate to not be that guy.
But I think this is the best men's class of the SwimSwam era. I'm not super familiar with some of the older classes. I definitely think this is better than NC State 2021, NC State 2024. Because when you think about it, we've been talking about where Thomas Hillman and Maximus Williamson where they were going to commit for like the last 3 years.
Since
and
they were
bam,
freshmen.
They're going to the same school. And like Braden said, these are 2 swimmers that have NCAA scoring times in 2 to 3 events already as juniors, and they're super versatile. When you think about the 2017 Cal class, where they also got 1-2, Ryan Hoffer's obviously one of the greatest recruits of all time, but he was a sprinter. He was just a sprinter. I mean, just a sprinter. He was a pretty darn good sprinter. And Sean Bishop was more on the distance side. But Thomas Hillman, Maximus Williamson, they can literally swim everything. And that doesn't even go to account for Thomas Mercer, who's also extremely versatile. And Josh Howitt's a pretty good sprinter as well. And the thing is, I don't think UVA's done with this class. I don't think they're done getting commitments. I think there's more to come.
I'll be the SwimSwam commenter. I'll be the commenter who's always, there's always one who's like, how much money does UVA have?
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this class is that I think these guys are going to the right school, right? We've seen some of these other versatile guys, Anthony Grimm, Arsenio Bustos, were really versatile, right? But they went to programs that either sort of made them be IMers or made them be X, made them be Y. With what we've seen from the Virginia women, and I almost think what they did in their dual meet the other day with what's Sabir Muhammad kid's name? Kamal Muhammad, making him swim breaststroke when he did not come as a breaststroker. Like, I think they're trying to flex to these guys, like, you can come to Virginia and continue to be a great butterflyer and freestyler and IMer and backstroker. And like, you can come here and do all of these things, Kate Douglas, Alex Walsh, and we're okay with that. And we know how to do it. And so in terms of the way the class fits up, I think you gotta give this class credit for the fact that what they really want to do fits with what Virginia really does, which I think the 2024 NC State class does as well, but maybe some of the other classes don't as well.
It's funny because most people in the comments don't think they picked the right school.
I do, and that's a general statement, right? Based on UVA men haven't been like the women, right? They haven't had these big breakouts. They have had breakouts, right? They've had like a Connor Lamb. They've had some mid guys get really good, but they haven't had really good guys become superstars.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we're seeing the beginning of it. Noah Nichols, Jack Akins, both did great, doing well at Pan Am's now. Like they are ascending, I think, but I am going to make the argument for the 2017 Cal men, just because as I know, it seems like they should. And let's take into account also that these guys, Thomas and Maximus, committed going into their junior years. So they have 2 full years of high school to get better, but that's just that's where swimming is right now. So like that can't be helped, but Maximus is not actually an NC2A scorer right now. And if he is, it's in the B final in his events.
No,
Thomas,
his 400 IM time would have made the A final last year.
Okay, so we got 1 A final there. Thomas would only have made 2 A finals in the 100 and 200 fly. He would have gotten 7th in both events, and 2 IM, he would have made the B final. Ryan Hoffer.
You use the word only to describe that as a high school sophomore?
Yeah, exactly.
As compared to Ryan Hoffer is getting 3rd, 4th, and 5th with his best times, coming in at the time of his commitment.
People forget how good Hoffer was in short course coming out of high school. Like, he might have been the best short course high school swimmer that ever existed. It was never going to turn into long course, but
and I agree. Like, I love in this description of the class, they're like, he's the best sprint prospect in the NC2A since Caleb Dressel. It's like, he was better than Caleb Dressel coming out of high school.
He was better than Caleb Dressel out of high school.
Yeah, and so it's like he's the best male sprint recruit we've ever seen, not only because of his times, but because of where he stood compared to college swimmers at the time as well.
Explicitly for NCAA short course competition.
Yeah. So like, to me, that kind of bolsters him. And then Sean Grisham was a very promising number 2. And then you had Mefford, Julian, and Carr, who were also like extremely versatile and had extremely top times in butterfly, backstroke, freestyle, IM. Like that trio was like really good on paper at the time. And so to me, I think that puts them just over the top of this class. But again, it like I would pick them, but these guys have negative 1 year compared to this Cal class. So this is obviously a very good class. And I think Maximus and Thomas are going to be revolutionary NC2A athletes.
I mean, if Maximus pops a 337 this year and Thomas pops a 4,200 fly, then well, they're probably not going to taper for yards, right? Like, so we might not get to see that. But yeah,
there's going to be some lag, but their senior year could be
next year. Yeah,
yeah, because they're only 2 years this year.
But doesn't it feel like that kind of group where when they call Todd DeSorbo and say, Todd, should I make my focus state this year or should I make my focus worlds? That Todd would say, yeah, go after states and see what you have left for worlds. Like, doesn't that feel like the Virginia attitude?
Absolutely. Which, especially Todd being he's the women's Olympic coach, but yeah, maybe he'll just troll Nesty and be like, yeah, taper for state and see what you got for trials. That would be excellent. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any parting thoughts?
You know what bothers me? The way people are saying that Todd needs to focus entirely on the men's team now because of Thomas and Maximus. Why can't you have 2 good programs? Like, and Auburn did it in the 2000s. NC State has one. Like, it's not one or the other.
It all comes down to your assistants. And here's what's interesting about what Virginia's doing. In most programs, the head coach has a pretty high administrative, fundraising, publicity, recruiting role. And the assistants are doing a lot of on-deck coaching. Virginia, especially going into this Olympic year, are flipping that, and they're giving all of that stuff to assistants, and they're letting DeSorbo spend more time on deck. So for better or for worse, we'll see how that works out. But if they can work that out, to me, that makes this even better.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that makes more sense. Like on paper, that makes more sense to me to have kind of the more experienced coach doing the coaching. And then, anyway.
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
But donors want to meet DeSorbo. You know, you got to have the right charismatic assistant. You can't put a first-year assistant out there asking for money. And Virginia has kept the nucleus with Blair and Fenwick and that crew together long enough that I feel like he can send those guys out on the road to do some of those things, and people will still respect it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is our breakdown for the day. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.